Hi, and welcome to the HofLine, your online hotline, direct line to the women-only attorneys at Hofheimer Family Law. My name's Katie Carter. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm an attorney at Hofheimer Family Law, a Virginia-based family law firm dedicated to representing women exclusively in divorce, custody, and support cases. I'm here today with Lorna Rhoades to talk about a topic that is maybe a little sensitive, but one we think we need to talk about all the same. We wanted to talk a little bit about some feedback that we get, which is basically, why do you guys hate dads so much? We see you represent women only. Like, what's wrong with the guy? Why don't you represent the guy? Why do you hate dads? So I hope, Lorna, you can kick us off with a little bit of a discussion and we can talk about it a little bit today.
Sure. So happy to be here, Katie. Thank you. I have to laugh when we get comments about us hating dads. And I say I have to laugh because I like to find the humor where I can. And it's humorous to me because I think it's the farthest thing from the truth. And it just comes across as kind of ridiculous to me. We don't hate dads. We don't hate men. Just because we represent women does not mean that we love women and hate the opposite sex. I mean, I think, in fact, the opposite is true. We value the role that men play in a family unit. We value the role that dads play in a family unit. But we represent women and we try to empower them. And sometimes that means pointing out what men have failed to do in a relationship and how that has impacted negatively the family unit. Just because we point out the reality of a situation in a family that highlights some of the negative things that a man has done doesn't mean that we hate them. It just means we're trying to be grounded and realistic and highlight the female contribution, which oftentimes I think it goes unnoticed or undervalued. So I think men who say that, or people who say that, are coming from a defensive position, maybe a little bit out of fear, because they know that our goal is to speak the truth and to highlight things that people would otherwise try to brush under the rug or not appreciate. What do you think, Katie? How would you respond to that comment about us hating men?
It's such a typical comment. And I mean, I can completely understand where it's coming from. I mean, it's sort of the way our brains work. If you love one thing, if you do one thing, then you hate the other. And I think Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, said this in her interview with Oprah. Just because you like Kate Middleton or the Duchess of Cambridge doesn't mean you have to hate the Duchess of Sussex. It's kind of that way. Sorry, I love the royals. I bring them into conversation wherever I can. But I think that it's the same here. I don't hate dads. I don't hate men. I'm a daughter. I have a husband. He's a great father. Like I love the men in my life. I respect the women in the lives of the other women that I know. I think they occupy a very important place. But I do think, I agree with you, Lorna, that women are sort of marginalized and undervalued in the roles that we inhabit. And there needs to be specific legal representation for people women who find themselves in that position. There are two locally based law firms that represent men only. And I mean, it makes sense. Historically, men were higher wage earners. So lawyers would represent the ones who were able to pay their fees. We're the only ones in Virginia dedicated to representing women exclusively. So far from being offended to find out that we do it, I think it's something that should be supported and encouraged. And I think it's important. I don't want to suggest that women are in a weaker position legally, because I think that's unfair and an oversimplification. But I do think it's fair to say that there is a bit of an economic disadvantage there, because women are typically, not to be sexist or to speak in overgeneralizations, but women are more likely to stay at home, to work part-time, to work in a job that is more flexible, to allow them to support the demands of the family unit. I'm not saying that men don't do that. I'm just saying I see women doing it more, as certainly the reality of my own personal life. And ultimately, that can have a negative economic consequence on a woman, especially if the relationship ultimately doesn't work out. Husbands and dads have their own legal issues too. But I think it's fair to say I feel drawn to help other women navigate these things. And also just to say, their dads are certainly free to go out and look for those resources, but obviously, this is not it. We're not the ones for them. And that's okay. That's okay to say too. Not everything has to be, a platform for everyone. I think we're better, stronger because we focus on a particular area and because we have a worldview that not everyone shares. But I do also think that men are obviously important and necessary and valued. I don't think anyone questions the value of a man the way they question the value of a woman. So I'd also be interested, Lorna, to hear what you would say when someone says to you, well, a kid really needs a dad. What would you say to that?
Yeah. And to me, one of the most important parts about our job is that although we don't represent children specifically, our goal is to not only represent women, but also to help the children derivatively by assisting the mother. And it's near and dear to my heart. I mean, I think there's no more important component to the family unit than the child or the children in a family. So absolutely. I would love to say that kids need dads, but on the other hand, I will say the reality often is that kids don't have good dads. They may not have a good mom, but when we're speaking specifically about dads, I will say that I have seen many cases where the children don't have a good dad. And is it better for a child to have any dad, whether it be good or bad? And I would say, depending on your situation, and every family is different, which makes it beautiful and unique, but depending on your situation, I would say the tough decision ends up being it's better to have a limited father presence if that father is actually damaging the children. It would be great if every dad was a great dad, but unfortunately that's not the situation. And it can do more damage that I've seen to have a bad dad who doesn't treat women with respect, who doesn't co-parent well with the female, that exercises control, that doesn't listen to the children. All of these things that are more psychological, we see a lot. We don't necessarily see every case that would have physical abuse or sexual abuse, but we do see these cases that are really hard where the father is just not on an appropriate emotional, mental level to be a good dad. And in those types of cases, our job is to advocate, well, if we can't have a great dad, let's ensure that there's the least damage possible in this situation to the family. And so we litigate it, we push hard, and we fight for the mom's voice because she's really trying to protect her child or children in that situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we have the knowledge. We've done a lot of those types of cases, and they're really tough. And it really comes down to knowing how to present your facts and how to present those issues to the court in a way that the court will accept, because we're governed by rules of evidence. We're governed by rules about witnesses. You can believe down in your heart that something is true, but our job is to get that truth out to the court in a way that's admissible. And over time, we've really learned how to do that. And we have a team of professionals that we consult with and use as experts. And those are so important in those types of cases. And I don't think other attorneys understand that who don't specialize in this the way that we do. So yeah, that's my spiel. I don't like to generalize, but the only generalization I could say to that is that I do think children need good dads, and maybe the dad will improve throughout the process if we highlight, things that need to be done by the father to improve himself. And sometimes that's great. We see that the dads really step up. But if they don't, then, at the end of the day, the child's the most important. And that's something that we're not afraid of, and we don't back down, and we push those to the court. And the judges don't like those types of cases. But you know what? I've seen judges. I had a terrible case regarding custody, but the judge said to me, don't rush this. This is a child at stake. And at the end of the case, she said, I really appreciate how you presented this case. And you did a great job, counsel. And I think that we did we were able to present the facts in a way that allowed the judge to make a decision that was based on sound legal principles in the law.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's right. It's so easy to speak in generalizations and just say something like kids just need dads, which is true. But you're right. It has to be a good dad, not just a dad, not just, insert man here, and then, everything's going to work out. I think it's important to point out too that kids need moms who are in a position to take care of them post-divorce. I see a lot of people who are posting, sharing things about dads and dads just having a role, and those same people then turning around and complaining about paying child support. And it's like, well, you can't have it every which way. You can't have, all of the child and none of the responsibility. When you look at women post-divorce, in a lot of cases, it's very financially difficult. Being a single mother is a major predictor of poverty, and it can have terrible outcomes for kids from, school dropouts and drug use, and, just generally bad outcomes can come from, not having a dad around, but it can also come from having a mother in poverty, which comes from a dad then not stepping up and doing some of the things that he needs to do. So, a big part of what I view our goal as is making sure that women have the information to ask for what they need and to hold their child's father's feet to the fire when it comes to getting the spousal support they deserve and the child support that they need and the share of the marital assets that they deserve from what they earned during the marriage. So I think it's important to look, when we're looking at what a child needs, you have to look at that sort of holistically and look at both mom and dad to try and figure out how we can put the child in the best position possible to be successful. It's no coincidence that we call our standard the best interest of the child. And that basically means that what mom wants doesn't matter. What dad wants doesn't matter. It's all about the child and what would generate the best outcome for the child. So whenever I hear people complaining about just dads having more time or dads paying less in support and moms getting rich off the support, I always just want to be like, yeah, but what about this child? Where's the child in all of this? And I think kids need parents, they need mothers and fathers who are willing to put their needs first. And that's kind of the most important thing that can come out of a divorce or custody case where there's children involved. So that's what, I think that's mostly what I would point out. We've got a few more minutes, Lorna, if you want to answer one more question, which is, okay. What do you think it's important for moms to remember as they go through the divorce and custody process?
Yes. I think that I believe divorce in a custody case would fall under like the second or third most stressful event in somebody's life. It's extremely, extremely stressful and it's extremely emotional. And so while you go through this process, while you're navigating those emotions, it's incredibly important that you have a clear mind and that you are able to have some perspective. And your lawyer, me, our team, is just one component of this whole process for our clients. And so I would say that you don't need to do it alone. You don't need to just do it with your lawyer. Women need to have a support system in place. They should have a counselor. They should have friends. They should have an outlet. And I really don't say that lightly because if you don't have that perspective and mental clarity, it will make your case so much more difficult. And my role is really about the legal system. My role is not to provide you with emotional coping mechanisms. I'm not an expert in that. That's not my training. So please seek out other sources because you will be better for it if you have the support that you need.
And you're worth it.
What would you say?
I would just say you're absolutely worth it. I feel like women come into my office. I don't know if this is true for you too, but they tell me why they can take a little bit less. I think I only need this much, or, I'm not going to ask for spousal support. It would just be too hard for him, that kind of thing. But with those women, I always want to take a little bit of extra time to help them understand not only what they're entitled to, but why they're entitled to it and why their contribution to the marriage, to the family is so important. It's very hard to do when the woman herself is devaluing herself from the beginning. But that's kind of why we're here, which is to nudge you, to remind you, to push you, because you're not difficult for asking these questions. You're not wrong for wanting to know what you're entitled to, because ultimately it's going to help you build the post-divorce life that you've been envisioning. And you as a participant, as a partner in your marriage, you're entitled is not necessarily a bad word, right? If you're entitled to it, you earned it, you deserve it. And your contributions to the marriage and to the family should be recognized and celebrated. So whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a working mom, a mom who's planning on returning to the workforce, a work-from-home mom, whatever, you deserve the benefit of what you helped to earn during the marriage. And you should not feel badly about that. And if you have any questions about it, you should talk to one of us, because we can help give you the words that you need to feel empowered and to support yourself in these discussions with your husband, with your family, with whoever else you're coming in contact with who's maybe, throwing shade your way. But they're wrong. They're wrong, and you're worth it.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And your life will be better for it. You've got to have that vision and hold that really tightly. Never let that go.
Absolutely. And it's all achievable by having information, asking questions, and making good decisions. You can make sure that your life is so much better post-divorce than you can even imagine now. So I think that's all I have to add. I don't know if you have anything else, Lorna.
No, just please come back, listen to more episodes, find us online, and we're happy to talk to you. There's plenty of information out there.
Thanks, Lorna, and thank you, everybody, for listening.